You know that constant, often unwelcome voice in your head, right? The one that pops up when you mess something up, tells you you're not good enough, that you're bound to fail, or maybe whispers doubts about whether you're truly liked or accepted.
Yeah, that voice, it can be pretty loud sometimes.
Exactly. So if you find yourself stuck in that exhausting cycle of harsh self-criticism, feeling constantly weighed down by your own internal negativity, well, this deep dive is designed specifically to help you understand its insidious power.
And crucially, to give you some really tactical ways to actually change it.
Yes. To effectively free yourself from its hold and, honestly, allow you to carry yourself differently through the world.
That internal conversation, the one happening kind of beneath the surface of our conscious thought, it's one of the most powerful forces shaping our daily experience, often without us even realizing it.
Absolutely. Today, we are taking a deep dive into the complex and, frankly, profoundly impactful world of self-talk.
That continuous internal dialogue.
Right. The one that runs in the background of our minds, influencing pretty much everything we do, feel, and think about ourselves. We've been poring over some compelling sources for this, including insightful material drawn from the concept of rewiring your self-talk.
And these sources offer a powerful look at why this inner chat is so critically important.
And most importantly for us today, they provide a kind of roadmap for how we can actively work to transform it.
Our mission in this deep dive is, well, it's pretty clear. To extract the most important, evidence-backed, and actionable nuggets of knowledge from these sources. We really want to help you understand the profound wiring effect your self-talk has on your brain and life.
And give you practical tools, real tools you can use.
Yeah, exactly. Tools to start transforming that often relentless inner critic into something far more constructive, maybe like an inner coach or, a supportive ally.
We'll be exploring perspectives that span various fields, insights from medical experts who study the physiological impacts,
Which are surprisingly direct.
psychologists who understand the behavioral and emotional links, life coaches focusing on practical change.
And even some cutting-edge neuroscience research,
Yeah.
which is just fascinating. It reveals how our self-talk literally shapes the physical structure and function of our brains.
It's a conversation that truly touches the core of who we are and how we navigate the world, isn't it?
Precisely. And if we're going to talk about rewiring self-talk before it wires us negatively, we first need a clear understanding of what self-talk actually is,
Good point.
and what this inner critic we hear so much about really represents.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our sources define self-talk as essentially the running commentary in your mind.
Yeah,
It's not just the occasional thought, it's the continuous stream of consciousness, the internal dialogue you have about yourself, your experiences, the world around you.
everything.
Right, everything. It's the thoughts you have about your performance, your appearance, your relationships, your capabilities, your failures, your successes. All of it.
Exactly. It's that internal monologue, the things you say to yourself inside your head. And here's where it gets really interesting, and honestly, often quite revealing.
Uh-huh.
Our sources, particularly those rooted in psychology, point out how dramatically harsher this inner voice is for many people compared to how they would ever speak to a friend facing a similar situation.
Oh, that's so true. I mean, think about it. If your friend messed up a project at work, would you say to them, "You are so stupid, you always fail, you'll never amount to anything"?
Of course not. No way.
You'd offer encouragement, perspective, maybe help them learn from it, you'd be supportive.
But yet,
Yet, we often allow our own internal voice to deliver precisely that kind of brutal, unrelenting criticism to ourselves.
you've hit on the concept of the inner critic perfectly there. It's that specific, often negative aspect of self-talk that functions like a harsh judge or, a relentless drill sergeant inside your head.
Yeah.
It's the voice that minimizes your successes, catastrophizes your failures, focuses relentlessly on your flaws, and generally operates from a place of fear and inadequacy.
And the examples are sadly universal, aren't they? I'm not smart enough, I'm unlovable, I'm awkward in social situations, I'll just mess it up anyway, so why bother?
Right, those kinds of phrases. And for many people, they aren't just fleeting thoughts. They become
Yes.
this constant, damaging soundtrack playing in the background.
Mhm.
And it's absolutely critical to understand that while these thoughts can sometimes feel automatic, ingrained, almost like truth.
Especially when they pop up after a mistake or something.
Exactly. Particularly when they pop up in response to challenges, setbacks, or perceived mistakes. They are profoundly disempowering. Now, let's be clear, our sources aren't suggesting that all self-critique is bad.
Okay.
A little bit of constructive self-assessment, where you objectively look at a situation and think, okay, I could have handled that differently, here's what I learned, that's vital for growth and self-improvement. It allows us to recognize errors and make necessary adjustments.
So a helpful inner voice might say, you made a mistake there, let's figure out why.
Right. Constructive.
While the inner critic says, you made a mistake because you're a total screw-up.
Exactly the distinction. The inner critic, when it's unchecked and dominant, it actually distorts our perception of reality.
How so?
Well, it blows our flaws way out of proportion, minimizes our strengths, and creates this fundamentally negative lens through which we view ourselves and our potential.
So it's like wearing negativity goggles.
Pretty much. And this constant negative filtering drags down our mood, it saps our motivation, and over time, it makes us actually believe those harsh statements. It severely erodes our self-esteem and sense of self-worth. It becomes this deeply damaging, self-perpetuating cycle.
So the consequences of letting this negative self-talk run wild, they go far beyond just feeling a bit down in the moment. There are real significant costs to our overall well-being.
Absolutely. The cost of unchecked negative self-talk is pervasive. I mean, it impacts nearly every area of our lives. Let's start with the mental and physical health impacts, because the link there is surprisingly direct and powerful.
Okay.
Psychologists and medical experts point out that when your inner critic is active, especially if it's constant or easily triggered by stress, it actually engages the brain's threat system.
The threat system.
Yeah, your brain and body react as if you were literally facing an external danger or attack.
Like the fight or flight response.
Precisely. Think about it from an evolutionary perspective, right? Humans evolved complex responses to social threats. Being ostracized, criticized, or rejected by the group could literally be a matter of survival back in the day.
True.
So our brains are wired to react strongly to perceived threats, whether they're, a lion chasing you or someone criticizing you, physical or social. So when you're internally berating yourself with harsh, rejecting thoughts,
Your brain thinks it's a real threat.
it can interpret that internal voice as a significant threat, yes.
And that unleashes stress hormones.
Exactly. It triggers the release of stress hormones, primarily cortisol. Now, cortisol is essential in short bursts for dealing with acute stress, but chronically high levels, which can result from persistent negative self-chatter.
That's damaging.
That's damaging. Our sources draw clear links between elevated cortisol and that continual stress activation fueled by self-criticism and impaired cognitive function. Things like difficulty with memory, focus, decision-making.
That makes so much sense. When I'm stressed out or spiraling mentally, it feels like my brain is wading through mud. It's hard to think clearly.
It literally is, in a way.
Yeah.
Those stress chemicals flood your system and interfere with the areas of your brain responsible for clear thinking and emotional regulation. But the impact goes beyond just cognition. Chronic stress from negative self-talk also suppresses immune function. It makes you more susceptible to illness. And studies also link long-term exposure to stress hormones, partly generated by our internal state, mind you, to increased risk of conditions like hypertension, heart disease, and other stress-related physical ailments. Being your own worst critic isn't just a mental burden. It puts your body in a constant state of duress.
Wow. So the internal mental chatter has this profound physical manifestation. That's huge.
It absolutely does. And then, of course, there's the direct impact on mental health and self-esteem. It's almost intuitive for us.
Yeah, seems obvious.
But research strongly confirms that pervasive negative self-talk is a significant contributor to higher levels of depression and anxiety. When your inner voice is constantly telling you you're inadequate, a failure, or unlovable, it reinforces those feelings. It can create a profound sense of hopelessness and worthlessness.
Which I guess could lead to social withdrawal if you feel that bad about yourself.
Exactly. If your internal narrative is one of constant deficiency, you start believing those harsh labels. This can lead to social withdrawal because you anticipate rejection or simply feel like you don't have anything worthwhile to offer. You might shy away from opportunities, new jobs, relationships, creative pursuits, because your inner critic tells you you'll just fall short anyway. Really creates a vicious cycle.
How so?
The more negatively you speak to yourself, the worse you feel. And the worse you feel, the more convincing and frequent the negative self-talk becomes. It can feel like being trapped in a psychological cage built by your own thoughts.
And how does this self-sabotage affect our performance and productivity in daily tasks, work, hobbies?
It has a huge impact there, too. Our sources highlight that performance and productivity often suffer significantly when the inner critic is dominant. Research consistently shows that harsh self-criticism increases anxiety,
Right.
which is a known inhibitor of effective problem-solving and clear thinking.
Ah.
Think about the presentation at work again. If your inner voice is amplifying your fears with thoughts like, I'm going to freeze up, everyone will see how unprepared I am, that anxiety isn't just uncomfortable. It actively interferes with your ability to focus, retrieve information, and speak smoothly.
So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You worry you'll mess up, and the worry makes you mess up.
Precisely. Your anxiety, fueled by negative self-talk, makes the outcome you fear more likely. Conversely, a more positive internal dialogue, not necessarily unrealistic, but supportive, like, okay, I'm a bit nervous, but I've prepared, I know this material, and I can handle it.
That helps.
That helps regulate anxiety. It keeps stress hormones lower and allows your higher brain functions to stay online, improving focus and performance. Studies in educational settings actually show this. Students who use self-affirming self-talk report less performance anxiety during exams and speeches.
And they do better.
And they actually perform better. Negative self-talk sabotages your potential by constantly eroding your confidence and hijacking your concentration with worry.
It sounds like this really does permeate every aspect of life, including our relationships with others.
It absolutely does. Relationships aren't immune to the fallout from a hypercritical inner voice. When we think poorly of ourselves, that insecurity, that fear of judgment or expectation of rejection, it often projects outwards.
How?
You might come across as defensive, maybe overly needy for reassurance, or even avoidant in social situations. Chronically low self-esteem, fueled by negative self-talk, makes genuine connection difficult because you're constantly battling your internal narrative about your own inadequacy.
You're too busy fighting the war in your own head to build bridges with others.
That's a great way to put it. Exactly. The energy is directed inward in a destructive way. Our sources contrast this with those who learn to cultivate a kinder inner voice.
Oh.
They tend to exhibit more positive social behaviors. They're often more open, less defensive, handle conflicts or criticism with greater composure because their self-worth isn't constantly on a line, you know?
Yeah.
Our sources include a brief but compelling case example of someone they call Emily. She struggled with chronic self-criticism, which made her really reactive and insecure in her relationships.
Okay.
But as she actively practiced self-compassion techniques, it didn't just improve her mood, it significantly enhanced her relationships. She became less triggered by perceived slights, more empathetic towards others because she was kinder to herself.
Ah, interesting.
And she communicated her needs and feelings more effectively without that filter of shame or fear.
That's powerful. The change radiates outward from within.
It truly does. So to quickly summarize the significant costs here, letting negative self-talk dominate increases physiological stress and its associated health risks. It worsens mental health outcomes like anxiety and depression. It severely limits performance and productivity by sabotaging confidence and focus. And it strains relationships by projecting insecurity. It unequivocally diminishes your overall quality of life.
Okay, the problem and its widespread impact are undeniable. It's really quite stark when you lay it all out. But why is it so powerful? It feels like more than just thoughts sometimes. Let's delve into the brain science. How does this inner dialogue actually wire our brains?
Okay, yeah. This is where we connect the psychological experience to the biological reality. And
Yeah.
it's absolutely fascinating. The deep power of self-talk lies in the brain's fundamental nature, specifically something called neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity, right? That idea that the brain isn't fixed, that it can change.
Exactly. Neuroplasticity is the brain's incredible lifelong ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. It changes physically and functionally in response to our experiences, our thoughts, our feelings, our actions. This isn't just something that happens in childhood. Your brain is rewiring right now.
So what we think and do can literally change our physical brain.
Absolutely. And the core principle driving this is often summarized with that phrase: neurons that fire together wire together.
Okay, explain that.
Imagine your brain as a vast landscape with countless potential paths. Every time you have a thought or engage in a specific mental process, like thinking I'm not good at anything, a certain network of neurons is activated. They fire.
And if I think that thought repeatedly, day after day,
Then those specific neurons are firing together repeatedly. Each time they fire together, the connection between them strengthens. It's like repeatedly walking the same path through a field, you create a well-worn trail. The more frequently you traverse that neural pathway with a negative thought, the deeper the groove becomes, making it easier and more automatic for your brain to default to that thought pattern next time. Frequent negative self-talk literally hardwires your brain to be more inclined towards negativity and self-criticism over time. Those pessimistic thoughts become the brain's superhighways.
That's such a powerful and slightly scary image that my recurring negative thoughts are building superhighways in my brain.
It is, but it also holds the key to change. Because if negative thoughts build pathways,
So do positive ones.
so do positive or constructive ones. Exactly. But let's look deeper at how different types of self-talk engage different brain systems. Neuroscience shows that negative and positive self-talk don't just travel different paths. They actually activate distinct regions and trigger different chemical releases in the brain.
Okay, let's break that down. What happens when we use positive or encouraging self-talk?
So when you engage in encouraging, supportive, or realistically optimistic self-talk, telling yourself, I can handle this, or I've prepared well, or maybe I'm learning from this, you activate areas associated with motivation, reward, and higher-level cognition.
Like the thinking part of the brain.
Yeah, and importantly, this includes circuits that release neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin.
Dopamine being linked to pleasure and motivation, right?
Yes, exactly. That feeling of a little boost or a sense of capability often comes with a surge of dopamine. And serotonin plays a key role in mood regulation, fostering feelings of calm and well-being. So when you're supportive of yourself internally, you're literally bathing your brain in chemicals that promote confidence, resilience, and a sense of calm focus. It helps activate the parts of your brain involved in planning and problem solving.
Okay, that makes sense. And the negative self-talk. We talked about the threat system earlier.
Right. Harsh self-criticism has pretty much the opposite effect. It fires up the stress response system deep within the limbic system, the amygdala.
The alarm center.
Exactly. The brain's rapid response alarm center for threats becomes really active. Neuroscientists using brain imaging techniques like fMRI have actually shown that self-critical thoughts stimulate areas like the amygdala and also the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC.
What does the ACC do?
The ACC is involved in detecting errors and conflicts, and when it's bombarded by self-criticism, it could really feel feelings of anxiety and distress.
So my brain really is reacting to my own internal criticism as if it's an external attack. It's not just a metaphor.
It truly is. The neural signature is remarkably similar. This activation of the threat system leads to the release of stress hormones like cortisol. And as we discussed, chronic cortisol exposure can actually impair function in the prefrontal cortex and hippocampus areas, vital for rational thinking, memory, and emotional regulation.
Which explains why it's so hard to think clearly or feel calm when you're caught in a negative self-talk spiral.
Exactly. Your brain is essentially in threat management mode, diverting resources away from those higher-level functions.
Is there a different brain response to self-compassion, treating yourself kindly?
Yes, and this is such a crucial piece of the puzzle revealed by recent neuroscience. Practicing self-compassion, responding to your own struggles with kindness and understanding, much like you would a friend, activates different brain circuits. Research, including fMRI studies by pioneers like Paul Gilbert, who founded compassion-focused therapy, shows that self-compassion engages circuits similar to those involved in receiving compassion from others. And this response is linked to the release of oxytocin.
Oxytocin, the love hormone or bonding hormone.
That's the one. And it acts like a biological counteragent to stress.
Oh.
Well, oxytocin has a powerful calming effect. It actually counteracts the stress response triggered by the amygdala and cortisol. So when you consciously shift from thinking I'm awful to thinking I'm human, this is hard, but I'll get through it,
You're changing your brain chemistry.
you're not just having a different thought, you're actively shifting your biology from a threat state fueled by cortisol and amygdala activation to a safer, calmer, more connected state fueled by oxytocin and activation of soothing systems. Brain imaging studies clearly show distinct changes in connectivity patterns. Positive self-talk and self-compassion build different networks and modulate brain states differently than negative self-talk.
Wow.
Your inner speech isn't just a passive observer. It is actively training your brain how to respond.
That puts a whole new spin on that popular Bruce Lee quote. Don't speak negatively about yourself. Your body doesn't know the difference. Words are energy.
It does, doesn't it? Well, maybe casting spells is metaphorical. The core idea that your internal words have a profound, almost directive effect on your biological state and neural wiring is definitely supported by the science. Your self-talk is instructing your brain on what's happening and how to react.
But the good news is the neuroplasticity part.
Fortunately, yes. The magic of neuroplasticity means that because these pathways are built through repetition, they can also be rebuilt through repetition. You absolutely can form new, more supportive connections and weaken the old negative ones.
It takes work, though.
It requires conscious effort, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like being a gardener of your mind. You have to decide which thoughts and neural pathways you will water and strengthen, and which you will allow to fade through disuse.
So understanding this brain science isn't just academic. It really shows us that changing our self-talk isn't just about trying to be positive.
No, it's much deeper than that.
It's about fundamentally reshaping our physical brains and consequently our entire experience of the world and ourselves. So what are the actual tangible benefits we can expect if we commit to this process of rewiring our self-talk?
The benefits are really widespread and deeply impactful. By intentionally cultivating a healthier inner dialogue, you are making a profound investment in your overall well-being. You see improvements across mental health, physical health, relationships, performance, resilience, pretty much everywhere.
Let's go back to stress and mental health first. How does that improve?
Certainly, one of the most immediate and significant benefits is reduced stress and improved mental health. When you replace constant self-criticism with a more supportive voice, you literally dampen that chronic stress response system we just discussed.
So less anxiety.
Yes, lower overall anxiety levels. Instead of amplifying fears and dwelling on worst-case scenarios, a supportive inner voice helps you stay calmer and more solution-focused when challenges arise. Our sources actually cite research, including observations during the COVID-19 pandemic, showing that individuals who effectively used positive self-talk were significantly better equipped to cope with the uncertainty and anxiety of that period. They demonstrated enhanced emotional regulation and less fear about the future.
It's like having a built-in emotional coach guiding you through it.
Exactly. Your supportive inner voice acts like a wise coach, helping you stay grounded, gently pulling you out of downward spirals by reminding you of your strengths, capabilities, and past successes. You know, I've gotten through tough times before. I can navigate this.
That builds resilience.
It builds emotional resilience, making you less susceptible to chronic anxiety and depression. And as we mentioned, therapeutic approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, and dialectical behavior therapy, DBT. They include specific modules dedicated to identifying and altering negative self-talk, precisely because it's so effective in improving mood and reducing anxiety.
And self-esteem, too?
And fundamentally, yes.
Yeah.
As you speak more kindly and realistically to yourself, your self-esteem naturally strengthens. It fosters a more stable and positive self-view that's less dependent on external circumstances or validation.
And how does this translate into improved performance and motivation? In practical tasks, at work, or even hobbies?
The link is very direct there. The way you talk to yourself has a critical impact on your ability to perform any task, really, whether it's public speaking, competing in sports, tackling a complex project at work, or pursuing a personal goal. Studies consistently demonstrate that positive, supportive self-talk enhances confidence, focus, and persistence, while negative self-talk introduces doubt, anxiety, and distraction. We talked about the presentation example earlier.
Right.
Studies of college students have shown that even brief self-affirmation exercises before a presentation can significantly reduce physiological stress markers and lead to improved performance.
Athletes are probably the best examples of this, aren't they? Using self-talk to push through barriers.
They are, absolutely. Elite athletes have long used positive self-talk, things like motivational cues, keep going, technical reminders, stay low, or self-affirming statements, I've trained for this, I'm ready, as a key part of their mental conditioning.
And research backs this up.
Oh yeah. Research confirms that this kind of internal dialogue improves concentration, fine-tunes technique, boosts endurance, and helps them recover mentally from errors or setbacks much faster. When you encourage yourself, you build confidence and concentration. When you discourage yourself, you introduce doubt, tension, distraction, all of which degrade performance.
It sounds like a superpower for career growth as well, staying motivated.
It absolutely can be. A supportive inner voice helps you navigate challenges and setbacks in your career much more effectively. Instead of interpreting a failure as proof I'm incompetent, you can reframe it as a learning experience.
Like, okay, that didn't work. What can I learn for next time?
Exactly. That kind of resilience keeps you motivated to keep trying, to not give up. It also primes you to seize opportunities because you genuinely believe in your capacity to learn and adapt. You know, I may not know everything, but I am capable of learning this and succeeding.
That makes sense.
Many successful leaders aren't immune to pressure or doubt, but they've often cultivated an internal dialogue that helps them reframe anxiety into focused action and maintain belief in their ability to overcome obstacles.
So how does this inner shift ripple out and improve our relationships with others? We touched on Emily earlier.
Right. As we discussed with Emily, when your inner voice is more positive and compassionate, that inner state naturally influences your outward interactions. You become less reliant on external validation because your self-worth isn't under constant internal attack.
You feel more secure in yourself.
Exactly. That self-acceptance and quiet confidence allow you to be more present, more open, more authentic in your interactions.
So you're not walking into a social situation preoccupied with the fear of being judged or rejected.
Pretty much.
Mm.
Instead of your inner voice maybe whispering, "They probably won't like me," leading you to be withdrawn or defensive, a more supportive internal script might be something like, "I'm going to enjoy connecting with people and I have something to offer to the conversation."
And that changes how you act.
That shift in internal state leads to more open body language, active listening, genuine engagement, which naturally fosters warmer responses from others. It also significantly improves your ability to handle conflict and criticism if your self-talk is constructive. You can listen to feedback without collapsing into shame or lashing out in defense. You can assess it calmly. Okay, that feedback might be tough, but what's valid here, and was just my inner critic amplifying things?
Like with Emily, her self-compassion made her a better communicator.
Yes, revisiting Emily's example, her increased self-compassion directly led to her being a more patient, understanding, and less reactive partner and friend. It significantly strengthened her personal connections and actually reduced her social anxiety.
It's a truly virtuous cycle then.
Right.
Better self-talk leads to better relationships, which reinforces feeling good about yourself and further improves self-talk.
Exactly, a positive feedback loop.
And you mentioned physical health benefits earlier too. That still seems incredible that our thoughts can do that.
Yeah, it's important to frame this realistically, of course. Changing your self-talk isn't a standalone cure for physical ailments, obviously,
Right.
but it is a powerful contributing factor to overall well-being. By consistently reducing the chronic stress response fueled by negative self-talk, you alleviate many of the damaging effects of elevated cortisol and constant threat system activation.
Like what?
Well, this includes indirect improvements in things like sleep quality, energy levels, and even immune function over time. Less chronic worry often leads to more restful sleep, naturally.
That makes sense.
Lower stress hormone levels reduce the constant physiological burden on your systems, which can lower the risk of developing stress-related physical health issues in the long term. Plus, think about it. When you feel better about yourself, when you're less burdened by your inner critic.
You're more likely to take care of yourself.
Exactly. You're more likely to engage in positive self-care behaviors, exercising, eating well, getting enough sleep, maybe seeking help from doctors or therapists when you need it. A more positive mindset cultivated through supportive self-talk creates a better mind-body environment for overall health and thriving.
So it really is like switching from lugging around this incredibly heavy, draining backpack of self-doubt and criticism
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
to carrying something much lighter, a backpack filled with self-support, resilience, and calm confidence. You literally carry yourself differently in the world.
You do. As Ethan Kross, who's a leading researcher on the inner voice, describes it, your internal monologue can be a powerful superpower, or it can be a source of chaotic negative chatter.
Superpower versus chaotic chatter. I like that.
The effort required to shift from one to the other is absolutely, fundamentally worth it for the breadth of benefits it unlocks across your entire life.
Okay, the case is clearly made for why this matters so much and what the benefits are. They're huge, but the million-dollar question is, how do we actually do it? This isn't a switch you just flip overnight, is it?
You're absolutely right. It's definitely a process, a practice that requires consistent effort and patience. But the good news is, the sources provide a clear set of tactical insights, practical steps you can start implementing today to begin the work of rewiring. It's like learning any new skill. It takes practice.
Okay, bring on the tactics. What's the first step? Where do we start?
The foundational step, really the starting point for everything else, is building awareness through mindfulness.
Mindfulness. Okay.
You simply cannot change what you are not aware of. The negative self-talk is often so automatic, so ingrained, that we don't even consciously notice it's happening, or the actual content of what's being said inside our heads.
So the action here is simply tuning in, just listening.
Yes, you have to start paying attention to that internal monologue. Listen to it almost as if you were overhearing a conversation between two other people. When do the negative thoughts typically pop up? Are there specific triggers?
Like criticism or making a mistake.
Exactly. It might be receiving criticism, experiencing a setback, maybe scrolling through social media and comparing yourself to others, or simply making a small mistake. Mindfulness techniques are incredibly helpful here. And this isn't about trying to empty your mind or stop thinking.
Right.
It's about pausing and observing your thoughts as they arise, without judgment. Just notice them.
Yeah.
You could even mentally label the thought, oh, I'm having a self-critical thought about that project.
Yeah.
Or there's the thought that I'm not good enough again.
Just labeling it.
Just labeling it, noticing it. Some people find that keeping a mini thought journal for a day or two is really illuminating. Just quickly jot down instances of negative self-talk you catch and maybe what was happening when the thought occurred. This helps reveal patterns. Even just taking a minute for some mindful breathing can create a mental space where you're better able to catch thoughts before they completely sweep you away.
So the goal here is to create a bit of distance, to shift from being lost in the thought, I am awful, to observing the thought, I'm noticing the thought that I am awful is coming up again. Interesting.
Exactly. That simple act of observation starts to break the automatic link and gives you a foothold for change. It lowers the volume on the inner critic by acknowledging it's just a thought, not necessarily reality.
Okay, that makes sense. Step 1, notice. Once we start noticing these thoughts, what's step 2?
Step 2 is crucial. Challenge and reframe those negative thoughts. Once you've caught a negative thought, don't just accept it as truth. Remember, your inner critic is often a master of distortion, overgeneralization, and catastrophizing.
Right, turning a molehill into a mountain.
Precisely. A minor error becomes proof that you're fundamentally incapable or always mess things up.
So question the thought, put it on trial.
Yes. Rigorously question it. Use evidence-based reasoning, much like you would assess a claim in, say, a court of law or a scientific study. Ask yourself, is this thought factually true? Is there solid evidence to support this absolute negative statement? Always. Never. Really. Is there another perspective I could take? Are there nuances I'm missing here? For example, if the thought is, I'll never be good at my job, challenge it. What evidence do you have for never? Can you recall times you did succeed, or learn something new, or receive positive feedback, or help someone else? Dig for counter-evidence.
Okay, find the holes in the argument.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once you've challenged the negative thought by poking holes in its shaky evidence, then you reframe it. And this doesn't mean replacing it with unrealistic, overly positive statements like, I'm perfect at my job.
Right, that wouldn't feel believable.
Exactly. It means reframing it into something more balanced, realistic, and constructive. It's about injecting realism and kindness. So instead of I'm incapable of anything, a reframe might be, okay, I made an error on that specific task, but I have a track record of doing many things well, and I can learn from this mistake to improve next time.
More balanced.
Much more balanced. This process, which is known as cognitive restructuring, is a core technique in cognitive behavioral therapy, precisely because it reliably helps people identify and shift unhelpful thinking patterns. It's like being a detective for your own thoughts, looking for the real evidence versus the inner critic's biased, often exaggerated claims.
Okay, so notice the thought, challenge its validity, and then reframe it into something more balanced and constructive. What comes after that? What's step 3?
Step 3 is practicing self-compassion. This is fundamental and honestly perhaps the most healing step in the whole process. It's about actively cultivating an inner ally, treating yourself with the same kindness, empathy, and understanding you would automatically offer a good friend or loved one who is struggling.
Ah, the classic what would I tell a friend test, but applied internally.
Exactly that. When your inner voice is being particularly cruel or judgmental, just pause, take a breath, and consciously ask yourself, if my best friend were going through this exact situation, feeling the same way, what words of comfort, encouragement, or perspective would I offer them?
Right, you wouldn't kick them when they're down?
Never. You wouldn't call them names or list their flaws. You'd likely say something supportive like, it's okay, everyone struggles sometimes, or this is just one setback, you'll get through it. Or maybe you're doing your best and that's enough right now. Then the key is to consciously offer those same kind words and that same understanding to yourself.
It feels a bit unnatural at first, maybe?
It can, but it's crucial. This isn't about self-pity or making excuses. It's about acknowledging that being human inherently involves experiencing difficulty, making mistakes, and feeling pain. It's recognizing our shared humanity. Everyone messes up. Everyone feels inadequate sometimes. Self-compassion also involves actively soothing yourself. Simple techniques, like placing a hand gently on your heart, or even giving yourself a comforting hug when you're feeling distressed. These can actually trigger the release of oxytocin, helping to calm your nervous system biologically. Cultivating this gentle, understanding inner voice helps create emotional resilience and actively turns down the volume on the harsh inner critic by offering a powerful, compassionate, alternative narrative.
Okay, self-compassion. Step 4 is using positive affirmations. Now, sometimes these get a bit of a bad rap, don't they? Like just chanting unrealistic things at yourself. How do we use them effectively?
You're right, they can feel forced or even backfire if they feel completely untrue or inauthentic. The key, as our sources suggest, is to use positive affirmations with a twist. Make them realistic, personal, and maybe even action-oriented, not just aspirational wishes you don't believe.
Mm.
Simply chanting, "I am a millionaire," when you're struggling financially isn't likely to stick or feel helpful.
So focus on truths, or at least believable possibilities, things you can accept.
Exactly. Craft affirmations that honestly acknowledge your efforts, your existing strengths, or your capacity for growth. Instead of "I'm perfect," maybe it's something like "I am learning and improving every day." Instead of "I'm effortlessly successful," perhaps it's "I have overcome challenges before, and I am capable of working towards my goals." Or even simpler, something core like "I deserve to treat myself with kindness."
And then repeat them.
And then the action is to repeat these statements regularly, maybe silently in the morning, perhaps before a challenging situation, or specifically when you catch a negative thought trying to take hold. Use them as a mental script to actively feed your brain a different kind of input. And there's research here too. Studies on brief self-affirmation exercises,
Like what kind of exercises?
like simply writing about your core values or personal strengths for a few minutes, have shown they can reduce stress, anxiety, and defensiveness when facing threats or challenges.
So it's the repetition that helps rewire the brain.
The power here really comes from repetition, yes. By consistently repeating realistic, supportive affirmations, you are actively leveraging neuroplasticity to build and strengthen those positive neural pathways we talked about earlier. You're consciously giving your brain a different tape to play than the old negative loop it might be used to.
Okay. Step 5, distance yourself from the inner critic. That sounds intriguing. How do you mentally separate yourself from something that feels so internal, so much a part of you?
You create psychological distance, which, surprisingly, can significantly weaken the emotional hold of that critical voice. One really effective technique is using what's called distanced self-talk.
How does that work?
Instead of thinking in the first person like, "I am so nervous about this interview," try thinking or even saying it using the second or third person. "You are nervous about this interview," your name, but you're prepared. Or even, "He is feeling nervous, but he knows his stuff."
Huh. Like you're coaching someone else or observing yourself.
Precisely. Studies show this simple linguistic shift helps reduce emotional intensity. It allows you to access the more rational, less emotionally hijacked parts of your brain, improving self-regulation under stress and helping you think more clearly about a problem. Another powerful technique, maybe a bit more involved,
Yeah.
is to externalize the inner critic. Imagine it as a separate entity, give it a persona, or even visualize it sitting in an empty chair across from you. This is related to exercises sometimes used in therapeutic settings, like Gestalt therapy's empty chair technique.
Where you talk to the empty chair.
Yeah, where a person might alternate chairs, speaking from the perspective of the critical voice in one chair, and then responding from their core, wiser self in the other chair.
What does that do?
This kind of dialogue often exposes how irrational or unfair the critic's statements really are. It gives you permission to actively talk back to that internal bully from a place of strength and truth. By personifying or distancing the voice, you start to recognize it as a part of your experience. Perhaps a misguided protective part, but not the whole of who you are.
So it loses some of its power.
Exactly. This makes it much easier to objectively assess its claims and gain control over its influence. Research on these kinds of distancing techniques, including two-chair exercises, has shown real effectiveness in reducing self-criticism, anxiety, and depression symptoms while boosting self-compassion.
That sounds incredibly powerful, though maybe a bit unusual to try at first.
It can feel unusual, yeah, but it's a potent way to change your fundamental relationship with the voice, seeing it as something separate you can dialogue with or observe, rather than something you simply are. Okay, step 6 is about intentionally shifting your focus. Cultivate gratitude and focus on your strengths.
Like a daily gratitude practice. People talk about that a lot.
Yes, exactly. Engaging in a daily gratitude practice, simply taking a moment to think about or maybe jot down a few things you are genuinely thankful for, however small, is a really well-established method for shifting your overall mental landscape.
How does that work in the brain?
Gratitude actually activates areas in the prefrontal cortex associated with rational thought and positive emotions. It makes your brain less fertile ground for negative rumination. By intentionally focusing on the positive aspects of your life, you literally create less mental space for the inner critic to dominate.
And focusing on strengths, too.
Yes, complimenting gratitude is actively focusing on your strengths and past victories. When your inner voice pipes up with, "You can't do anything right," you counter that with a conscious effort to recall specific instances where you have done things right. Remember accomplishments, times you helped others, challenges you overcame, skills you used effectively.
Like building your own evidence library against the critic's claims.
Exactly. Some people find it helpful to keep a success log, or even just a folder of positive feedback they've received to reference when the inner critic gets particularly loud. You're actively training your brain to calibrate its focus away from dwelling solely on perceived flaws and failures, towards seeing the fuller, more balanced picture of who you are and what you're capable of.
Okay, that makes sense. Step 7. Take action and prove yourself wrong. This sounds active.
This is perhaps the most empowering step because it uses real-world experience to directly dismantle the critic's predictions. Your negative voice often makes these sweeping, discouraging claims about what you can't do or how you will inevitably fail.
So you fight back with action.
The most effective way to rewrite that script is through taking small, manageable actions that directly contradict those claims. If the critic says, "You'll fail at that, why even try?" Pick one small, achievable task related to it and just complete it.
Like finally making that difficult phone call you've been avoiding, or finishing that small report.
Precisely. Or maybe cleaning just one corner of a messy room you feel overwhelmed by, or sticking to a short workout you promised yourself. Then, crucially, you have to consciously acknowledge that you did it. Celebrate that small win, however insignificant it might feel in the moment. Tell yourself, "I did it. I completed that call," or "I finished that small task."
So each win builds evidence.
Each tiny accomplishment becomes tangible evidence against the negative narrative. By consistently taking small actions and giving yourself credit, you build a growing library of real-world proof that your inner critic is often wrong, or at least exaggerating wildly.
And your self-talk can use that evidence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Your updated inner dialogue can then reference this evidence. My inner critic says I can't finish anything, but I did just finish that report. This process actively empowers your inner voice to become more supportive and realistic based on actual experience, while starving the negative voice of its perceived authority and predictive power.
Okay, love that. And finally, step 8, seek support when needed.
This is absolutely vital because rewiring deep, long-standing patterns of self-talk is challenging. It really is, especially if they are rooted in past trauma or difficult life experiences. You do not have to undertake this journey alone.
So talk to people.
Talk to trusted friends, family members, or, importantly, mental health professionals. They can provide invaluable external perspective and support. Often when you voice your self-criticisms aloud, someone who cares about you will vehemently disagree.
Yeah, they'll say, that's not true at all.
Exactly. And hearing that can help you start to see how distorted your thoughts might have become, helping you realize they aren't necessarily facts.
And a therapist can offer specific, structured tools.
Absolutely. Therapists are trained in evidence-based techniques like CBT, DBT, or compassion-focused therapy, which are specifically designed to help you identify and change negative thought patterns and build self-compassion. They provide a safe, non-judgmental environment to explore the origins of your inner critic and guide you through effective strategies tailored to you.
Just saying it out loud helps sometimes.
Sometimes, simply voicing those internal thoughts aloud to a neutral, supportive person can significantly reduce their power and make them seem less overwhelming, maybe even a bit exaggerated when heard externalized. Support groups or coaching can also offer guidance and a sense of community, knowing others struggle too. The ultimate goal is to cultivate an inner voice that truly supports and encourages you, rather than undermines you.
And getting help is okay.
And seeking external support is a sign of strength, not weakness, in achieving that. We mentioned John earlier, remember, who lost his job.
Right, and got stuck in negativity.
Exactly. He was trapped in a cycle of negative self-talk, feeling like a total failure. By seeking therapy, he learned to identify his thoughts, challenge their validity. Is failure truly accurate, or did I just lose this one specific job? And actively reframe them. I have valuable skills. I can learn from this and find a new opportunity.
And that helped him move forward.
That shift allowed him to stay motivated, keep searching, and ultimately find a new, fulfilling job. It's a great example of how external support, combined with these tactical practices, leads to real-world change.
Emily and John's stories really underscore that this isn't just theoretical. These techniques, practiced consistently, lead to tangible results in how we feel, act, and live our lives.
They absolutely do. It's about consistent practice.
So if someone is listening right now and feels that weight of negative self-talk, maybe they recognize themselves in some of this and they're ready to start chipping away at it,
Yeah.
what's one very simple, actionable step they could take this week just to get started?
Okay, let's make this the action challenge. Don't feel pressure to try and implement all 8 steps at once. That can definitely feel overwhelming and counterproductive.
Yeah, start small.
Instead, commit to focusing on just one technique this week. Maybe it's simply building awareness. Try to spend just 60 seconds at the start of your day or during a moment of stress, quietly noticing your thoughts without judgment. Just observe what comes up. Or maybe keep a mini thought journal for just one single day this week. Quickly jotting down maybe 3 to 5 negative thoughts you catch and what triggered them, just to see the patterns.
Or pick one thought to challenge.
Or, if you've already identified one particularly common negative thought that plagues you, make a conscious effort to challenge and reframe that specific thought just once today. Or maybe the next time you catch yourself being harshly self-critical, pause, perhaps place a hand on your heart and ask, what would I say to a friend in this situation? And offer yourself that same kind phrase just once.
So the challenge is basically pick one small step.
Pick one small step, commit to trying it consistently just for this week, and simply notice what happens. Don't judge the outcome, just observe the process of trying.
Start small, start where you are, be consistent.
Exactly. Small, consistent steps are what build those new pathways in the brain.
Okay, so to recap this deep dive into the power of self-talk and how to rewire it before it wires us into negativity, we've seen how toxic and pervasive negative self-talk truly is.
Yeah, it's pretty damaging.
Impacting not just our mood, but fundamentally affecting our mental and physical health, our performance in every area of life, and the quality of our relationships. It triggers our stress response, erodes our confidence, and creates a vicious cycle that's hard to break.
But the incredibly hopeful news, backed by solid neuroscience, is that our brains are inherently wired for change through neuroplasticity. While repeating negative patterns strengthens those unwanted pathways, we absolutely have the power to actively intervene and rewire.
Oh.
By consistently practicing more constructive and compassionate self-talk, we literally build new, healthier networks in our brains.
Yeah.
We carve new paths.
And this rewiring offers tangible, life-changing benefits. Significantly reduced stress and anxiety, improved mental health and emotional resilience.
Better performance and focus, whether you're giving a presentation or just trying to finish a task.
Better, more authentic relationships, and even positive indirect effects on our physical well-being by dialing down that chronic stress.
And we've explored a really practical, tactical toolbox you can start using, building awareness through mindfulness to actually catch the thoughts.
Actively challenging and reframing negative thoughts with evidence and a balanced perspective.
Practicing genuine self-compassion by treating yourself like you'd treat a good friend.
Using realistic and personalized affirmations to build positive mental scripts.
Creating distance from the inner critic to weaken its emotional hold.
Focusing intentionally on gratitude and your strengths to recalibrate your focus.
Taking small actions to prove your negative predictions wrong through real experience. And crucially, seeking external support when facing deep-seated patterns. Don't go it alone if you don't have to.
Consistency is truly key with all these practices, isn't it? It's not an overnight transformation, but every single time you choose to notice, challenge, reframe, or offer yourself kindness, you are reinforcing a healthier mental habit and strengthening a more supportive pathway in your brain.
You are literally doing the rewiring work with each conscious choice. And remember, you don't have to face the inner critic alone. Support is available, and it's a sign of strength to reach out.
Prioritizing the shift in your inner dialogue, this process of consciously rewiring your self-talk, is perhaps one of the most significant investments you can make in your own well-being and ultimately your success and happiness.
It really allows you to move through the world with a lighter load, doesn't it? Carrying yourself with more confidence, less fear, and a deeper sense of self-compassion and understanding.
As you engage in this practice, you may find that rewiring your self-talk truly does begin to rewire your life. Stress becomes more manageable, failures feel more like instructive learning experiences rather than crushing personal blows, and you navigate challenges with much greater resilience. So, if the conversations we have with ourselves are, in many ways, the most important ones we have each day,
And they probably are.
consider this provocative thought. What kind of conversation do you want yours to be? And what potential lies dormant within you, just waiting to be unlocked if you cultivate that supportive inner voice to become one of your greatest strengths?